Growing up with a mom who is a narcissist, you live with chronic invalidation. They can be very entitled and have this sense of superiority. Hi, this is Jim Brillon. Welcome to this YouTube channel where we discuss all things mental health. We've been doing a number of different videos on dealing with narcissists in your life, recovery from narcissistic abuse, and I get a lot of questions specifically on the subject of dealing with a narcissistic mother and with narcissistic siblings. So I wanted to go a little more in depth on those two specific issues. When it comes to growing up with a mom who's a narcissist, this is a really, really difficult reality to cope with, to live with. Because the mother-daughter, mother-son relationship, it's supposed to be what we think of as kind of a sacred relationship where, this is the one person in your life that you can always turn to, who's going to be unconditionally loving, accepting, who's going to offer you nurturing guidance and set healthy limits. But there's often a grieving process that people have to go through if they've lived with a narcissistic mom, because it's a very primal relationship in a sense. And especially on Mother's Day, it makes that a very, very difficult day when we're supposed to be celebrating our moms, yet sometimes we're actually grieving. Growing up with a mom who is a narcissist, you live with chronic invalidation, meaning that you are told repeatedly, explicitly or implicitly, that your feelings don't matter. The effects of growing up in chronic invalidation, whether your mom's a narcissist or not, can lead to self-doubt, really kind of questioning your own worth, seeking validation in strangers as an adult, learning that you have to apologize for everything. Specifically with a mom who's a narcissist, you deal a lot with shame, and there's a lot of fault-finding, projection, and the emotional manipulation tactics that they do are things like triangulation, where they'll compare you to one of your siblings and then try to pit that person against you. They'll try to create rivalries. They often compete with their children because they may feel deeply insecure and even threatened by their own children. So they have to try to keep you in a one-down position so that they can be in that one-up grandiose position. And it's crazy making, because in public, they will tell people what wonderful kids they have, and they look like supermom. And then at home, behind closed doors, they're a living terror. And often kids end up walking on eggshells around a narcissistic mom, always worried about triggering her, setting her off, somehow attracting, her anger. There's really a disregard for the child's boundaries. So a narcissistic mom can be extremely abandoning and then can be extremely intrusive. And that back and forth is really disconcerting. And the narcissistic mom is never at fault for anything. She's never wrong. That can be just a crazy making dynamic. What happens growing up in this kind of a family system, there are different themes, so to speak. One is in which you grow up where basically you're taught implicitly and explicitly that you're incompetent. You're always taught that you're inferior, that you're unworthy, that your boundaries don't matter, and there's a power struggle that happens in that relationship. Sometimes you just feel very isolated. You might grow up to be very dependent and envious, and you get blamed for everything. Your mom might prohibit you from dating, keeping you isolated from your support system, and there's this sense that you have to be perfect all the time. And other times you just really, your childhood is denied you. You will grow up very fearful and insecure, having a hard time sharing and being vulnerable with people. And often there's physical violence in these types of relationships. Often I think you grow up asking the question, am I ever going to be enough? And it's a real struggle, wondering, why can't she see me? Why can't she love me? There can be a lifelong search for love and validation. And that's because of this history of manipulation and really a mom who's vacant in a lot of ways. She's just not there in a way that you need to fulfill your needs. Often the best approach, if you can't go no contact, and there's many reasons why people can't go no contact, is to do the gray rock approach, where you just don't share your vulnerabilities. And you may have to, as a grown-up, just walk out of the room when it starts getting abusive. Sons go through a very strange dynamic with a narcissistic mom as well. There can often be a struggle in the boy and the man to deal with autonomy, and it really interferes with future relationships with other women. There can be an internal struggle just to find your self-worth, and these patterns of enmeshment and neglect. You'll be idealized by your mom and then devalued and often criticized. Again, the triangulation happens, and the narcissistic mom, when their son starts to date, nobody is ever good enough, and then they're threatened by the partner. And there can also be a very blurred emotional boundary that converge on something we call emotional incest, where a mom will make their son their surrogate partner, will tell him that, you understand me a lot better than your dad. And that's when the boy starts to become a caretaker, and mom shares things that she really shouldn't be sharing. It's a very destructive dynamic. There are these Oedipal issues that come up, and might struggle with intimacy issues as an adult. Her needs are always going to come first, and she might brag about you in public, but then criticize you in private. The other topic that people ask me a lot about is narcissistic siblings, when you grow up with siblings who are narcissists. The sad reality here is that these are the first people that you know in your life. They're your first friends, right? And you want to have a close connection with them. You want to be able to trust and share your feelings. But often a narcissistic sibling, especially if they're the older one that is the golden child, and then another child comes into the family and they're knocked off of their throne, they can become very manipulative, and there's a me first mentality. They won't share. They'll hoard things to keep you from getting any of it. They can be very entitled and have this sense of superiority, and they struggle to be mom and dad's favorite. The sad thing is that growing into your adult years, you might be shocked to find that your mom, disinherited you. And why did she do that? Well, because your narcissistic sibling has been whispering in her ear your whole life, telling her all kinds of bad things about you, most of which might be flat out lies. You can grow up in a trauma-bonded relationship with a sibling who's a narcissist, where you can try your whole life to have some kind of relationship with them, or to justify what's happening in the relationship. And there's a grieving process that goes on. A lot of times you can have guilt because you can't fix it. You just can't repair it. And you might get criticized by other people in the family. Like, why can't you just get over it? Why do you have such a hard time with your brother or your sister? And if they've been, planting things in mom and dad's ears, you have no idea how you've been undermined your entire life. Often you can become the scapegoat, and then you're targeted for punishment. Narcissistic siblings will never forget slights, and they'll never stop competing. They have to win, and they'll find ways to make sure that they get all of the money, they get all of the praise, that they're always seen as mom and dad's favorites, and they'll manipulate others, tell lies about you, and control through triangulation. They may even, at the end of the parent's life, they may schedule the funeral at a specific time when they know that their siblings can't get there. The sad reality is that often, we have to love these people from a distance, if there's any love left, and sometimes we need to just break things off. You can often be punished after you do that. These are very, very difficult dynamics to grow up in, and they're things that cause lifelong grief for many, many people. I'd be very interested to hear in the comments, what you think of this topic, and if you've had experiences with a narcissistic mom or a sibling, let me know what those experiences have been. I encourage you to like and subscribe and sign up for notifications so you can find out when we put out more videos. Take care.